right. Hello, this is Michael Williams. I'm here today with Domen from Slovenia, right? Is that the way that we pronounce it, Domen?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So when Domen first came to me and I found out where you were from, I was like, where is Slovenia? I think I've heard of it before, but I was pleasantly surprised to have you as a client. So thank you so much again for being willing to do this interview, because not everyone is willing to do interviews. But we were having such a great conversation today about what you learned and where you are now. I wanted to capture this for everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
So the first question that I want to ask you is where were you before you started the speech coaching? Tell me a little bit about what life and speech and speaking was like for you.
So before starting these coaching sessions and with the Pro90d program, I wasn't such a bad stutterer, and but I would do get stuck daily. And the biggest problems that I had was getting stuck saying my name and finishing off conversations. And basically, the main thing that bothered me with this, it really wasn't me getting stuck, but it was that my thinking was all the time about the speech. In other words, I would be anxious. I would worry about my speech and worry if my speaking situation would go well, and I didn't enjoy as much meeting new people and getting into the zone while being out with friends or particularly strangers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I remember now, what percentage of the day do you speak English? Because English is not your first language, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what percentage of the day do you actually speak English?
Well, I usually only write in English, and I don't speak much English day to day. I mainly speak to you when we are speaking on a weekly basis. But I would also speak English for example, like every 2 weeks when I would meet a foreigner in my country or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought. So the reason that I mention that is because many people who are checking out the Pro90d speech system, English is not their first language.
Yeah.
And they're wondering if this will translate into their language. What's been your experience? Has this actually improved the way you speak your language, as well as English, obviously?
Yeah, it definitely translates well. I have a feeling that even my language in particular, you can speak in the way you speak English, Slovenian, but I think it would apply to most languages, because it's a style of speaking. And I actually had no problem transitioning the practice from English to Slovenian. And also, of course, I also practice in my own language. So I would do it from every angle.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So tell us now before we do that, what are just a few things that you felt like have been most helpful from our coaching sessions and from the system? Just like maybe 2 to 3 things in brief. We don't want to go into details, obviously, because the secrets of the Pro90d speech system. But if you could just share, a couple of things that have been most helpful that you've worked on, that you've practiced, that's helped your speech the most.
Well, the things that most help me practice with my speech is modeling, and because modeling, it's a lot easier than focusing on separate parts of speech, and it makes it easier for you to imitate someone who already speaks well and get accustomed to that style of speaking. So number one would be modeling. The other part would be airflow. This one was big for me because when I would get stuck, I would notice that I was run out of air. I didn't actually breathe in enough air, and so I couldn't get the words out. I was like choking.
Right.
And now that I remember that, even if I do get stuck on some occasions, I'm like, in a split second, okay, just take a breath and continue from there. And it just goes so smoothly. And even if I do get stuck now, it's so short that it's natural.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah. And we talked about that everyone has disfluencies. The percentage is somewhere between 5 to 2%. So 95%. So people are fluent 95% of the time to 98% of the time, right? So no one's like 100% fluent 100% of the time. Sure, there are people who are fluent 100% of the time, or they're fluent up to 100%, but not 100% of the time they speak are they
Yeah.
100% fluent, right? Everyone has some percentage of disfluencies. So we have to get out of the mindset of perfect speech. And we talked about how you've gotten to a place now where you don't really think about speaking. So say a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, this is the whole reason why I started this program. It was because I was tired of worrying about my speech, and now after all this practice and the successes that I've had in the recent months, I don't get as anxious or anxious at all in everyday conversations. So I will just trust my speech to do its thing.
Mm.
And that's it. That's it. I still get these anxious feelings now and then, but they are diminishing. And that's the whole point. It's, well, at least for me, is to feel better in speaking situation, because I was tired of all this anxiety and this feeling of unease when going into a speaking situation. So I find myself avoiding this type of situations less and less, and actually enjoying my time speaking to people.
Mm. That's very important, because that's one of, at least that's one of my primary goals for this system is, well, two. One is that you don't really think about speaking, that you just, like you said, let your speech do its job. You don't think about it. Two, in fact, let's say three things. Two, when you do get stuck, and you are going to get stuck, everyone's going to get stuck sometimes.
Yeah.
You just quickly recover, take a breath, or you say something, you just quickly recover. It's like going over a bump in the road, right? You're driving, and you go over a bump. You don't stop and back up and go, oh, I just went over a bump, and then sit there and keep going back over the bump, right? You go over and go, oh, okay, that was a bump, and you just keep driving. So recovering quickly when you get stuck, sometimes not even thinking, recovery becomes automatic, right? Recovery becomes
Yeah, yeah,
automatic, where you just automatically do something. You don't even think about recovering at that point. And
yeah.
then I think the other thing that you said, there was another one, and I think, I'm not sure if I can remember it right now, but
I think it was this. Now that I have the tools,
yeah,
now that I have something to work with, I don't feel as anxious speaking anymore because I know what to focus on.
exactly.
Previously, when I would get stuck, I would just think, oh, now I gotta do something different because remember the time that you didn't get stuck? Do that. But what was it exactly? I don't know. And it
Yeah,
was, it, it wasn't defined. So now with the right tools, actually, even if I do get stuck, I don't panic because it's just a reminder, oh, now I just need to do this and that, and then it just progresses. And
exactly.
even if I would have a bad speaking situation, in general, where I will get stuck multiple times, and which actually didn't happen in the recent months, I have the security that I actually can go back and do the practice again and listen to the audios and everything and basically do something about it because I don't feel hopeless anymore.
Wow, that's powerful. So you actually mentioned, yeah, you mentioned, you brought up another good point. The one that I was going to make is related to that, and that is that you enjoy speaking now,
Yeah,
right? Right. If you're not, it's not something you dread, but it's something that you enjoy. And then the other one that you brought up is that, and all of my clients who go through this say the same thing. They have the tools. And when you have the tools, you feel more secure and more confident. And because you feel
yeah,
secure and confident, it actually improves your speech,
yeah,
right?
definitely. Yeah,
So,
yeah,
because you know that, okay, if I get stuck, I know what to do. I know I'm going to be able to say what I want to say. So then you generally don't have any problem because you're not thinking about, you're not being anxious and worried about speaking, which actually causes you to be able to speak better. So
yeah,
it's a cycle,
definitely.
right? You have the tools, you know how to use them. When you need to use them, you pull it out, you use it. But you progressively don't need to use them more and more. Or said a better way, you need to use the tools less and less.
Yeah, and they come on automatically in a way that you just actually follow. You do this. Uh, you take this advice, and you don't have to think about it.
Exactly.
If you actually would record yourself speaking, you would find that you're actually doing these things. So yeah,
Yeah. And that's another great point. This isn't something where you have to, like some other systems, remember a strange way of breathing, where it sounds strange and it feels strange, and you have to practice every day for the rest of your life. This is like learning another language. You practice it, you get to a level of efficiency, and things become automatic to you. You don't have to think about it, you just do it automatically. And it becomes not just natural speech, but it becomes actually good speech, great speech, right? Not strange speech.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely, yeah.
So if you were going to give someone advice or recommend the Pro90 speech system in general and the coaching specifically, what would you tell them based on your own experience? What would you tell them about? Because people are wondering, okay, this is a lot of money. Comparatively speaking, it's not, because if you think about the ear device, the DAP, that cost over $3,000, sometimes more. And from what I hear, there's no refunds. You get it for some people. I'm not going to say many, but I can say people I've talked to, they say it stops working after a while. Then your money's gone, right? So there's just nothing you can do. There's other systems and therapists who may not be fully equipped to deal with people that struggle with stuttering because there's a psychological dimension that we didn't even really talk about. But there's a whole psychological dimension, which you mentioned, kind of worrying about and being anxious. The
Yeah.
system addresses both the psychology and physiology of speech. So people are wondering, is this a good investment or not? Will this work for me? What would you tell them?
Well, if you have the time to put the work in and you're tired of stuttering, then this is definitely a good investment. But you really need to take the time. I need to emphasize this because people in general aren't enough motivated to do this type of self-therapy, and that's really when the coaching comes in. And I talk with the coaching classes because it's accountability helps a lot, particularly in my case, and I know that for many of you this would prove the same. And it's not just that, it's also feedback. And overall, you just feel more motivated to do it, and which is the most important part, doing it daily, because that's actually the only way to improve, because you can't expect to improve by just reading something or listening to, and that it would come by itself.
Mm.
You can help yourself by following the guidelines, but without you actually using and practicing them on a daily basis. And for me, it was really for about 2 months to really show the results. You won't get the results if you don't put the time in it. So this is definitely a great investment if you're willing to put in the work. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. I mean, I couldn't really say that any better myself. So I've since been able to look and see how much time it takes people. And I've been able to say that even with the coaching, if you're willing to put in 10 or 15 minutes a day of practice time, minimally 10, there's audio listening and things like that that you do while you're driving or whatever, or while you're but if you take 10 to 15 minutes a day, that's the minimum, you can improve your speech. Now, 20, 30, 40 minutes, 50 or 60 is going to be better.
Yeah.
But I found if you can just sit down for 10 or 15 minutes a day and really devote that time to focused practice, you can see some significant results. And I know you did more than that. How much time do you think you spent just in practice? I'm not talking about listening or watching videos, but just...
I think that I would usually spend for around 30 minutes per day, but it's usually like so. I would say I will now practice for 10 minutes and then see how it goes from there. 10 minutes is great, but if I do more, then it's perfect. And that was usually the case. There would be maybe like 2 or 3 days when I would only do 10 minutes, but the fourth time I would really enjoy the practice, and it would go for longer and longer. And even when later I started practicing by recording myself, it would become even more interesting because you get this feedback from the video, and then you would really like to learn how to speak better, to communicate better, and it becomes another thing entirely, where you don't even think about as much as getting stuck, but it would be more about communicating better.
Exactly. Well, Domen, you've always done this. I'm really, really proud of you, and you've always articulated the essence of the program so well. Even though English is not your first language, you still articulate the essence of the Pro90d speech system very, very clearly and accurately. So thank you so much for that. You are, and if you want, we'll share with people kind of what you do, but you help people with their beards, and you're self-employed, so you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you work hard, you work from home, and you're the guy that helps other people grow out awesome looking beards. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
so if you so choose, we can add a link to this. If not, then that's cool too. But if people who are watching this want to work on their beards, then you'll be the guy that they come to.
Yeah, well, if there are some men that are interested into growing their beard and want to have some tips on how to do it, as well as products for beard grooming and so on, sure, I believe that my website would give them great help.
Okay. Thank you so much, Domen, for taking the time. We've learned a lot from you, and we will see you next time.
Thank you. Yes, no problem.